Hello, salam, shalom, namaste, satrikal, aloha, hola, ciao, bonjour, buna, and privyet. It's really, really good to be with you again. And we have a very special guest with us. So I know you will be very happy you have joined us today. And our special guest for today is Josephine de Jongh. She is an author, personal life stories, a physician, an international intuitive speaker, and an intuitive drawing coach. So I think that's that's the part we're going to focus on today. But before we get into any of that, welcome, Josephine.
Thank you so much, Samia. That's a great introduction. Yes. And I'm happy to be with you.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm
it's really
so
good.
happy to have you with us. And Josephine, please tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Yes. So, well, I'm a mother of four children, and I studied medical studies. I became a physician. I worked in cardiology department, internal medicine, and then in youth healthcare for 13 years. Then there was a career shift towards stories, writing personal life stories together with someone, yeah, whose story wanted to be told. And then my teacher suggested to start with intuitive drawing. And so I did. And yeah, and then I started I think after half a year, I started coaching others as well because we thought that this might be interesting for other people too and nice to do. And so we did. We started a group and um, at home, first in a shop, then at home, and then at several places. I gave workshops. And nowadays I do online. So yeah, and then I made a career shift towards being a doctor again in psychiatry. Yes, but not the most severe cases. But I work in a multidisciplinary team together with psychologists and psychiatrists and a creative therapist. Sometimes we do that. Yeah, trauma therapy, and that is also a very good, and but it's quite intense. So I like to do things like intuitive drawing and painting. Aside from that, and also singing in a choir nowadays. That is also gives so good energy.
Yes, that sounds like a lot of fun, actually. And I really appreciate how I mean, you just mentioned being part of a multidisciplinary team, but you're not just part of a multidisciplinary team, just in all the work that you're doing and the things that you do for fun for yourself. I can see how multidisciplinary you are yourself. That's amazing.
Yeah, that is true. And I definitely like cultures and the diversity of people, of plants, of animals, or anything. There's so much around us. It's so interesting. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Uh, um, you definitely are my kind of people in that context because I have a similar nature where I just love to learn about all kinds of things. And, I know like random facts about all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um, and I just find it fun and I find it enriching life and it's just cool.
Yeah, and it's so nice to meet people and share some insights and understandings and interests. So we can
Yeah,
learn from each other. Yeah.
indeed, indeed. So, Josephine, tell me more about the intuitive drawing part of what you do. What is intuitive drawing for those people who are not familiar with the idea?
Yes. Well, it is actually there are very few rules or no rules at all, you might even say. And the idea is that you let it happen in a moment. So you do not make a plan in front. You do not have to have inspiration. Can be, but most of the time I don't, to be honest. And then drawing, you just maybe you even don't know which color you want to start with, then you can close your eyes and randomly pick a color pencil. And then it doesn't have to be a color pencil, but I like colors, so I usually use colors. And then I start to make it easy in the beginning. You can draw randomly a line crisscross over the paper. So you make little parts, and then you can start to fill in the little parts, because as you have no idea, it can be challenging. But when you just start, you will see that things start to evolve. And so my teacher, he told me, start just with in that way. And I did. And the first parts, I still had a kind of theme. And then I had no theme at all. And I said, oh, what to draw now? I don't know. I really don't know. But I continued anyway. And then things started to pop up by itself. And I was so surprised. I said, where does this come from? I didn't even know. I had no idea that that was somewhere in my subconscious mind, or maybe in the universe. Who will tell? And but things started to appear, and it was so interesting. And then I continued. Of course, I was curious if this comes up to the paper, what will come more?
Mm.
And so there were many evenings that I was drawing for hours and creating things. And sometimes I had an idea what theme it could be related to. Very often, not really. And when I take a look at what people in my group made, yeah, it's more or less the same, and we all have a different style. So I cannot make what you make. You cannot make what I make. It is like an autograph, and but that's also so interesting. And what is important is not to judge, just accept whatever comes up, that it is something of you, and it is allowed to be there.
Mm.
Yeah.
That is really, really interesting. So what's somebody, I can just hear some of our audience members thinking, what's the point of
Yeah.
intuitive drawing?
Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode. Hope you're getting value out of it. For your information, this episode has been sponsored by the Happiness 101 program. Are you a change maker, coach, trainer, or healer? Are chains of fear holding you back from making the impact and income you desire? Using a unique combination of positive psychology and the spiritual wisdom of our most effective change makers, the Happiness 101 program helps you break through your limiting beliefs and manifest the abundance and success you desire with fun and ease. Interested? Book a free Happiness 101 exploration call with me, your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Just use my online calendar link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
Of doing this, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the benefits, you might say, is that you step out of the rat race,
Mm.
that you actually take some me time and take time for yourself, and time to let everything that's going on there settle down. And that's why we recommend to start with drawing instead of painting, because drawing really goes slow. And it's a way that to get to know yourself better. It's just relaxing, calming down, and also connect with your subconscious mind. And it's interesting. People really say, "Oh, I get to know myself better." And also, let's go the opinions and the judgmental mindset, which, that we all have. Yeah, and we can, and it's not gone like that, but at least when you see it happen in yourself or in somebody else, you can say, "Oh, okay, there it is again. Let go. Just let it be."
Yes, when you had mentioned the judgmental mindset, even the first time, immediately that idea got my attention because, as a happiness expert, I have come to realize that a judgmental mindset is probably one of those root causes of unhappiness in pretty much every situation that you're experiencing unhappiness. If you begin to dig deeper into what's the root cause or what's the solution, how can I begin to address this issue, there will be an element of judgmental thinking that's going on that needs to be addressed. And judgmental thinking is just so normalized for us in our culture, even like in the way that we teach our children. And I don't think a lot of people even realize that we are necessarily learning or teaching or practicing judgmental thinking at all the times that we are actually
No, that's true.
engaging in judgmental thinking. And whoa, and then when you do become aware and you're like, okay, I want to change this thinking pattern and not think judgmentally, at least in the context of the issue that you have become aware of, it's challenging. It can be really hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I start this with people, and actually the biggest challenge is to overcome that. And some people do not dare to start. They just look at what others have made. But then it's so strong, this belief that I cannot draw. And I think, no, everybody can sing, everybody can dance, everybody can draw.
Yes, yes. It made me think about my little niece and nephew. They're about 8 years old now, but it's like one of the really cool things you see with kids is that um, they love to draw, and they draw all kinds of things. And a lot of it doesn't look great. I mean, if you were to judge it with a critical eye.
Yes.
But we don't. Like when the kids are kids, at least, in most cases, we give them that grace and that understanding of, hey, here's a way of expressing them, for the kids to express themselves, and they're going to go through this process of learning. And so, everything's not going to look great, but that's not the point. And so we give them that time and space and that allowance, and we know it helps the kids. So, but
True.
what
For
changes
children, it's
them?
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, now that you say, one day I was at art market and art fair, you can say it. and there were parents and kids around, and I had this idea of making painting of the day. So I had a canvas, and everybody who came along and who would like to do could add a little bit, a part of it. And so there was a little girl, I think she was 4 or 5 years of age, and she painted a red slice of watermelon. And then I think, okay, that's nice. That's juicy. I like that in the red color. And then she was looking at it and she added blue dots as the seed. And she was so delighted, and all adult grown-ups around her with her, the joy that she had the freedom to make not brown seeds like they usually are in reality, but she could make them blue. And so that was such a moment of joy and fun and freedom. You can do anything, just what you like. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I think, oh my gosh, now you just reminded me of something. Most of the time, I mean, I brought this up myself and I was like, oh, we allow kids so much freedom and it's so good, etc., etc. And you just reminded me of a time, of an incident where a child wasn't allowed the freedom. Actually, I'm getting confused in my memories if this was something that really happened or if someone was telling a story about something that happened, but in a story. But in the story, a child made was making like a drawing, and they colored the sky pink. And a teacher or somebody who saw the child's drawing, who saw they had made it pink, failed the child. So I think it was a teacher. And they said, oh, you fail in this. The sky is not pink. It has to be blue.
Yeah.
And it's like, but why? And there are times when the sky can be pink. What's wrong with
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and when you look at the great artists, they often go a bit off track and
yes.
or simplify, or make it a little bit over the top or rude or yeah.
It's like part of being creative. Uh, so I mean, clearly there is a value to creating art that is as exact a reproduction of real life as possible. I remember going to one of the museums over here where they were like, there was a certain period in history where in the context of sculpting, because for a long time, people didn't even have the technology, they didn't have the skill, the knowledge for how to create sculptures of human beings that looked really realistic. And so there was a whole period where people were trying to get to that place where they could make really realistic looking human sculptures. But and then we got to that point and we were able to make very realistic looking human sculptures. But that part of the human sculpting experience didn't last very long because once people could start creating hyper realistic sculptures, it's like people are like, what's the point of that? This is boring. And so actually the culture shifted back to creating sculptures that were exaggerated in various ways.
Yes. True. Yeah. and it's so playful. So yeah, I would play for playfulness. That's also what my teacher says. Like we got so serious. We all have to go back to kindergarten playground and just play around a bit and feel
Mm,
free. Yeah.
yes. And so for you, what becomes possible when we just play free?
Yeah, well, it's always very different. And as it comes from the subconscious mind, sometimes I can relate, I can see, oh, but this is something I have seen this day. And but I did not draw it intentionally, but it's there. Yeah, I cannot deny. Yeah. So when I am in a field of flowers, I will make something different than when I am in an event or in a city or in a more hostile environment. There I do not go normally. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you ever use intuitive drawing and painting as a part of the therapeutic work that you do?
Yes. Yes, sure. Yeah. And I must say that with the creative therapist I have worked together with, yeah, it's a whole education they have for 4 years here in the Netherlands. And so it is more guided. Um, but I do not have that education. And there's still one client I have, and this lady, she does not speak, but she expresses herself very clearly in drawing or painting. Yes.
Mhm.
And so that's a very good way to let the emotions out. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So when used in a therapeutic context, it's a little
Mhm.
bit more guided, but so it's a different in that sense. It's like it would be a little bit of a different experience than if someone just came to an intuitive drawing um, course.
Yeah, I think so. But when I see my online group now, um, people like it to have a team or some guidelines. Um, so I for them, but I always leave the option open to just make whatever comes up to you and what you like to do. Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. I remember, I don't think I've ever taken an intuitive drawing class before. I took one time an intuitive movement class. And I remember like the very first time I went to class, it was a little bit challenging for me because I used to be very inhibited in how I allowed myself to move my body. I didn't always feel very safe in
Mhm.
in my body. And so I remember when I first went to the intuitive movement class, I was like, I don't know what to do. And I
Mhm.
felt strange and weird and awkward about doing it. And so it was in that context helpful for the teacher who was there. She was like, I'm going to be moving just as my body desires. And if you want, you can try to follow my movements and see how it makes you feel. But she was always very clear that the goal of our being there wasn't to follow what she was doing.
Yeah.
She was like, just use this as a point of inspiration if you're feeling a little short on ideas.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can relate to that. Yes.
And then once you just sort of like accept the idea of, okay, like you let go of those judgments and fears, etc. And just like you were saying, Josephine, in the context of the intuitive drawing, uh, things just start to come out of you. It's like, and I was like, oh, I do know what I want to do. It's like, and it wasn't like I knew like 5 minutes ahead of time what I wanted to do, but it was like once I made one movement and I just allowed myself to make a movement, then it was like, oh, then I had the idea for the next movement that I wanted to make. And that's
Yes.
part kind of like what you were describing with what happens when you're doing the intuitive drawing.
Yes. Yeah, you can compare it a bit towards to the coloring for adults. You have those beautiful patterns, and then you cannot see when you start how you will do all the colors. It's way too much. But you start somewhere, and then somehow it evolves. You do one color after another, and so or you start in one corner, whatever, but somehow it evolves. It shows by itself how you will continue. And so then I would consider the intuitive drawing. um, Compared to that, it's also calming down. But then next level, because coloring, then you're still working in the pattern of somebody else.
Mhm.
While in intuitive drawing or painting, it comes, you create your own pattern. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you just made me think about another really important lesson that I've learned about working with our intuition in general, because
Mhm.
in the recent years, I have learned to appreciate my intuition a lot more as a source of knowing, as a way of knowing. And now actually, for example, anytime I'm in any kind of a um, situation, I mean, I try to use my intuition all the time now as much as possible, but especially when I find myself having any kind of a dilemma or a problem, or I have any question that I'm looking for an answer. My favorite way now of figuring out what the answer is for me is to check in with my intuition.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I have learned about how our intuition works is exactly what we were just talking about, this, that you don't always, I mean, in fact, I've never had this experience where you're like, okay, I'm going to seek intuitive guidance on this question, and the answer just comes to you as a whole. Um,
Mhm.
my experience has always been that you like first open yourself up to the awareness of what your intuition is guiding you towards. And you have to take that first step and do what it's guiding you to do. And then it guides you to the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step. And this is just part of how intuition seems to work. And
Yes.
um and I think there was like something so profound about realizing this, for me, like that this is a feature of how intuition works, because like especially when seeking guidance on like really difficult things, oftentimes, like I know I had this need to have immediate clarity
Mhm. Yeah.
because that helps me feel more in control. I was like, if I know exactly where I'm going and how I'm going to get there, then that gave me a sense of control. But but intuition doesn't work that way. And if you're going to utilize intuition as a source of guidance, as a source of knowing, then you have to accept that it's not going to work that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes one step after another. That's true.
Yes. Yes. But then
Yes.
there's also something so beautiful about that and really actually even wise about that, because I realized also that if in like so many occasions, on so many occasions, I can guarantee this in the context of my experience, that if my intuition had shown me the big final picture of where it was leading me to, I wouldn't have believed it,
Mhm.
that I could actually get there. I'd be like, this is impossible. I
Yeah.
cannot do this. And so the fact that it led me to that place, just one little step at a time, and I could take each of those little steps. Wow, I mean, it was actually, there was like a great blessing in that.
Yes. Yes. True. Yeah. I can relate to that. That resonates. Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah. And so it's also about trusting, hearing it in the first place,
Mm,
trust it, because we tend to think that others, are more educated or more experienced or are more convincing, but they cannot know what is best for us or what is our
mm,
path. That is, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, your heart knows best. Yeah.
Yes, yes. You know, this issue of trust is also such a deep issue in terms of, like when we start to think about what do we actually trust, um, and how do we deepen our trust in someone or something, even ourselves, in a
Mhm.
situation where we want to deepen our trust, because we see that if we could deepen our trust, like for example, if we're talking about deepening our trust in ourselves, like, there's so many benefits to deepening our trust in ourselves. You then have more self-confidence, you have better self-esteem, there's you can live at a level of contentment and confidence and just happiness when you trust yourself more.
Yes.
That is not possible without that self-trust. And so,
Mhm.
but so many people, struggle with their self-trust, or they don't know how to deepen that self-trust. And so, this question of how do you do that is a really, really important question. And I'm
Mhm.
seeing that, a practice like intuitive drawing is actually a practice in learning
Yes,
for
it's
self-trust
yes,
also. Yeah.
yes. And
Mm.
people do get more confident
Yeah.
because you can see, hey, not only Picasso can make beautiful art, so can I. How great is that?
Yes. So I mean, the question that just popped in my mind right now, Josephine, is I can totally see how people, when they're practicing intuitive drawing, get more confident in their ability to engage in intuitive drawing. Um, do you have any insight in how they can take the lessons that they're learning in the context of how to become better, more confident, less judgmental, etc., in the context of intuitive drawing? How do you take those lessons and apply them to the rest of your life?
Mm, yeah. Well, that goes by itself.
Mm,
It's just practicing regularly. If you do it only once, that will not have so much effect. But when you do it regularly, then it becomes natural. It becomes a habit, and it works in all fields of your life. Yeah.
yeah, yes, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. Oh, that is such a That is such a great, great and wise point, because I know, earlier we were talking about judgmental thinking, and I know one of the missions that I have in working with my clients is to help them develop non-judgmental thinking. And when I talk about developing non-judgmental thinking, I want my clients and myself to think non-judgmentally in as many aspects of our lives as possible. Ideally, eventually, all of our thinking would be non-judgmental. But oftentimes we have certain issues where you can really see that it's creating a problem. And so, you can address those first. But really, like my goal as a happiness expert is that eventually, we would have just non-judgmental thinking across the board. And if I think about, well, how do we develop that? For sure, it's about practice, 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 practice.
Yes.
Practice in some contexts, and then, having this awareness and having these conversations like you and I are doing right now, where we are becoming more aware of the benefits of practices like following your intuition in a certain context, or having non-judgmental thinking in a certain context, and then realizing, oh, this can also benefit me in this other part of my life and that other part of my life. And so then you can begin to realize for yourself how you can apply the lessons you've learned in this one context to the other context.
Yes, yes, true. Yeah, yeah. And the nice thing about it is that it's not hard. It's
Mm.
playful and it is relaxing.
Yes.
So I also like mindfulness. I do that also with clients, and that also it's more about a state of being than
Yes.
doing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned about how it's relaxing and it's playful, and it made me think not only is it relaxing and playful, but there's also this element of you have to allow yourself to be relaxed and playful in order to
Yeah.
engage
Yeah.
in the process. So it sort of actually like goes hand in hand. You allow yourself and then you're able to do it. And then when you do it, it actually helps you become more relaxed and more playful. So it's like a positive feedback loop in that sense.
Yes. And it's respectful for yourself.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
The time for yourself, and you just accept what is there, what comes up.
mm, ah. These are such beautiful and amazing lessons for us to learn about how to live life in general, basically, and the more widely we apply these lessons in our life, the happier we will be, the more fun and easy we will find it to make any change in our life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also helps you to get to know yourself better, but also the other people who are with you. It's very nice to do in a group, actually.
Yes.
And most of the time, at first, the conversations are somewhat more superficial, and
Mm,
somewhere it happens and it goes more in depth, and it's more one-to-one conversations.
yes. Oh,
I don't
that
know, it just happens by itself, by the process. Yeah.
yes. Oh my gosh. Josephine, you just made me think of my sister and the brilliant work that she does. So, her zone of genius is relationships, in the context of like she's a people's person, and she has this amazing amazing like ability to not only create really amazing relationships for herself, but she's also able to help other people create amazing relationships with each other. She does a lot of community building work using those skills, particularly in the context of interfaith community building. But, like her skills, I mean, the professional part of her work is in the context of interfaith community building, but really, the what she teaches and practices, you can use that in the context of any kind of relationships in your life. And I know I have certainly benefited from that in so many like areas, in so many relationships in my life, and using her guidance to improve my various relationships. And one of the, and you know what you were just sharing about when you do intuitive drawing in a group, and you get to know other people, and there's this its own joy in that. You just made me think about how actually practicing, like one of the biggest lessons my sister teaches about how you develop better relationships with other people is actually that you have to practice these lessons of not thinking judgmentally. And like when you're looking at someone else and you're trying to understand them and get to know them, it's so important that you practice these skills that been talking about, that you cultivate as an intuitive drawing person or practice, that you think non-judgmentally, not just about your own drawing, but the other person's drawing, and you trust the process, not only for yourself, that what you are producing is good and valuable, but you trust that for the other person as well. And so then when you begin to relate to that other person also from this place of greater trust in the process, and thinking non-judgmentally, and taking on this relaxed and playful attitude rather than being too serious,
Yes. Yes.
then oh my gosh, can you just imagine, like, what amazing, beautiful relationships.
Yes.
Oh,
And that is so valuable. The
yeah.
quality of our life, but even our lifespan depends very much on the quality of our relationships.
Yes. Oh,
There's been a long-term research done about that.
mm,
What defines your long-term health and lifespan, and relationships is top one, is number one. Even not with the people most close to you, but with just everyone that you meet during the day.
mm,
And the second place is with your closest relatives or friends, and then come things like non-smoking and exercising and good food and things. But most important are the relationships, the sense of being part of a community.
yes. Yes, absolutely. Oh, now you just made me think about another story. I'll just quickly share this one because this is one of my favorite stories about happy people. Uh, there has been, like so much research that's been ongoing about happiness in the last, I would say, like 3 decades, especially. Is the whole field of positive psychology, which is literally the the subfield within psychology that's focused on studying happiness. So it's actually sometimes even called the science of happiness. It's really taken off, and in the last 3 decades or so. And in this time, so much research has been done on what really allows people to be happy. And there was like this one particular study where they took a more anthropological approach to the question of what allows people to be happy. And what I mean by anthropological approach, for those of you who may not be familiar with this idea, is the researchers actually went out in the world and they started to observe people. And they actually, one of their core strategies was they were like, well, first of all, we have to find the happiest people that we can find. So how do we find the happiest people in the world? And so they actually started asking people, who is the happiest person that you know? And whoever, was flagged by many people in the community as this person is the happiest person we know, then they would go to that person and they would interview them to learn more about them, their life, their beliefs, etc. So this going through this process, they actually ended up traveling all over the world. And at some point, they ended up in this like little village in Vietnam. And by unanimous consent, they were directed to go meet this little old lady who lived in this like little hut in a rural village in Vietnam. Everybody was like, she's the happiest person that we know. And so they go to see this little lady, and she's like in this like little, it was it was not even like a solid permanent structure. It was like made of, different grasses and leaves and, like those kinds of relatively impermanent materials. So it was like a very simple structure. When they went inside, they saw that she didn't have very many belongings. Like she was set up on a little like bed, and she had like a chest with a few things. And there was like one window and one door that had been created in this like hut structure where she lived. So, you could like tell like she wasn't rich by any means. In fact, by material standards, she was very poor. Um, she was also disabled. Like she couldn't actually walk anymore because of her disability. So she pretty much spent most of her day just sitting on her little cot which was placed next to the window. And it was like, oh, and she's one of the happiest people in the world, or at least in that part
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the world. And they were like, so what do you do? Tell us more about, you and this and that. And basically, it was like, she was like, oh, when they asked her, like, what makes you so happy? What allows you to be so happy? Her response was like so, like she was like, but wouldn't I be happy? Oh, I don't have I have every reason to be happy. I have such an amazing life. Like here I am, and every need that I have is met. I have so many people who love me. I get, they come and they eat with me, they bring me food and water, and they eat with me and they help me take care of myself in all the different ways that I need taking care of. And look, I have this wonderful window and I can see beautiful trees out of it and hear, birds chirping and, see the beautiful sky and, feel the beautiful breeze. And, she just started, there's like so many things to be grateful for.
Yeah, gratitude. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and and she was like, why would I be unhappy? And whereas when you looked at if you looked at her life from another perspective, like when they talk to the villagers, they're like, oh, she's disabled because of old age. And, in her younger days, she lived through the war that happened in Vietnam. It destroyed
Mm.
her family. Her family got killed. I mean, she experienced real trauma and loss in her life, so it wasn't like she didn't have any reason to be unhappy if she chose to be unhappy. But the thing was that, she chose to
Yeah.
to 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 be happy and and focus on all the things that she had to be grateful for, and through looking at life through that perspective of gratitude, she found so much to be grateful for.
Mhm.
She was like, oh my gosh. And the thing that really, like, one of the biggest lessons that I learned from this story was also that, you know, it's like she was experiencing so much abundance in her life, particularly like the relationships, like so many, like, people in the village, like everybody in the village loved her, and they did what they could to help her. They came to visit her, this and that. And that created all kinds of ease and joy and happiness in her life. Yes. And I'm like, you know what? What if she was like a crabby old lady? How many of the same people would come to help her and serve her as they did? Or even if they did come to help her and serve her, but she was crabby and angry and things like that, how many of them would come and do it with joy and happiness? And if they didn't come with joy and happiness, how would that impact her happiness,
Yeah.
um, even more? Because it's like our emotions are also infectious.
Yeah, yes, yes, yeah. So it's either you could say it's either a positive spiral or a negative spiral, and there you have a
Yes,
choice if you are aware of it. Yeah,
yes. And so it's like, by practicing these skills that we are learning through intuitive rowing, you can actually, and then applying those lessons more
yeah,
broadly into your life, you actually get to create the all the happiness and the joy and the abundance that you want to see in your life. You don't just have to wish or hope. You're
yeah,
you're actually doing something very real to actively create it for yourself, and draw it and attract more of it into your life.
yes. And it's always good, I would say. Like sometimes dark things come out. I
Mm,
remember one lady who joined for the first time. She was holding a pencil like this, and then
mm,
it was black. And the other group members are okay, but my teacher said, "Oh, well, very good. The trash has to come out."
yeah.
And when that happens, it's fine. You don't be shocked by that. It's perfectly okay. Then that's out. But what is also nice, what sometimes can happen, is that a person who thinks he's quite depressed um, starts drawing all kinds of flowers or butterflies or just lovely things, and
Yeah.
that you see, hey, there you've been focusing all the time on that one black dot, but there is so much more
Yeah.
inside of you.
Mm,
So that can also be an eye opener in that way.
yes. Oh, this idea of let the trash come out. So beautiful also, and so profound and so deep. Uh, Makes me think about another one of my teachers. And uh, man, I mean, like, it's like, if you don't let the trash out, where is the space for all the beautiful things to stay? you know? So it's
Yeah.
like, in some ways, you have to let the trash out. And you have to keep, anytime the trash comes, a little bit of trash gets created, it's like, all right, let's take it out. Let's take it out so that we can leave the space free and clear for something amazing and beautiful that we do want
Yes.
to
True.
be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, my EMDR trauma therapy is a lot like that. So yeah, just
Mm,
cleaning up and yeah,
yeah.
washing out a bit, and then people experience more space for the actual things in life,
Yes.
living in the here and now.
Mm. Oh my gosh. Josephine, you keep making me think of things that I want to talk to you about. And oh my gosh, we are pretty much out of time for today.
Yes.
Do you have any last thoughts that you would love to share?
Yeah, I would say just do it. Try it out and try to overcome a thought like that you are not able to do it, or that you have no inspiration, or that you didn't draw for a very long time. It's not about the results. It is about the process.
Mm,
And, just give it a try. And what's also very nice about it is that it is an activity you can do with people of all cultures,
mm,
all religions, all ages. There is and it unites. So it's about connecting with your deeper inner self, and
mm,
connecting with the people around you.
yeah. Ah,
So yes, I'm very enthusiastic about it, and I do it now for 8 years, and I will keep promoting. I'm very sure, pretty much sure about that.
that's amazing, Josephine. And just again, in those last few words that you shared, you brought up more things that I would love to talk to you about. And I will encourage our listeners to please connect with Josephine. Please connect with Josephine so you can continue to learn more from her and with her. You know, I'm sure just as I have so many amazing insights that I've been getting in our conversation and keep wanting to talk to you more and more, Josephine.
Yeah.
Many of our listeners, I'm sure you're having this experience as well. And so you know what? It doesn't have to stop. We will be dropping Josephine's links in the show notes. So make sure you check the show notes and connect with Josephine. And until we connect next time, I just wish you lots and lots and lots of peace and joy.
Thank you so much, Samia. And yeah, I really enjoyed this, and it was felt so valuable for me. Yes.